What's going on, guys? This is Martyrs Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls PvP. Alright guys, we're back at it once again with yet another installment of the Who's Worthy of Killing a Gravelord. Alright, now before I get started, I'd like to offer a shout out to good old Alpha Papa Novi. He is one of those Twitch streamers, and I really like his channel. He's pretty new. As a matter of fact, I think he's only been streaming for about a month. But one thing that I really enjoy about his stream is that he has like little to no salt in his stream. I mean, that guy plays for fun. He doesn't really complain outside of the typical, oh, I lost or whatever. But he doesn't talking about anyone. He's not making the who's the best, who's the god of dark. So, he doesn't do any of that. He just sit there, plays the game the way he enjoys it, and he makes for a good experience for not only the viewers but also the participants. So shout out to good old Alpha Papa Novi. Okay, so enough about that. This is like the fourth installment of my Who's Worthy of Killing a Gravelord. And like I said before, I don't really want to say series, because when you say series, it kind of implies that it's going to be something that you're dedicated to continuing to do, right? But seeing that the game we're slowly approaching the 2-year mark for Dark Souls. Seeing that we're almost at the 2-year mark, I mean, the game is really dying out, right? And I don't know if because people are losing interest, or because there are other games that are a little more interesting at the time, right? Because I know a lot of people are on the GTA 5 bandwagon for now, which is cool. I mean, as a matter of fact, I even purchased GTA 5. Now, granted, I think I've only played that game for like 2 hours. Maybe I need to invest more time into it, but we all have our own personal tastes and choices, and I don't know, I mean, it's cool for now, right? But this is not a conversation about GTA. So, for all the people who are enjoying it, go ahead and knock yourselves out. But like I was saying, I think the player base is really starting to slowly diminish, right? But all the while, I will continue to do what I can to help to keep the franchise alive. Now, like I was saying, I've been doing a lot of gravelording lately, and having these gravelording experiences have really brought me to a confirmed realization that when it comes to the multiplayer aspect of PvP, you should not, in my personal opinion, be a one-dimensional player. Now, what exactly do I mean by being a one-dimensional player? I'll give you a classic example. There are a large group of players out there that duel, and that's all they do. It's pretty much all they do is duel. They'll sit in a burg, or they'll sit in a township, or they'll enjoy a fight club, or they'll participate in a tournament. Those are the type of settings that they're most comfortable with. Then you have the type of player who does a lot of random invasions, right? So in other words, they don't care anything about your formalities. They don't care anything about bound before and after. They don't care anything about any of that nonsense. They're just out for blood. And I think a lot of times, when you only approach PvP one-dimensionally, it can cause for a lot of frustration, right? In the sense that, let's just go back to the dueler. If you're the type of person that duels, you probably don't want a Gravelord, right? Because nobody's going to be sitting here standing in line, waiting their turn and bowing before they initiate an attack. No one's going to do that while you're Gravelording, because everyone is out for blood. And I think when you limit yourself to only one style of gameplay, you can basically miss out on a lot of fun, in my personal opinion. Now, what exactly do I mean by fun? Well, what I mean is, there's so many ways to approach multiplayer that, I just think if you limit yourself to one type, you can miss out on a lot of different experiences. Case in point, when I first started Dark Souls, I used to gank. I used to gank all the time. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of players used to gank, at least when the game was first released, because I mean that was one of the fastest way to gain souls so that you can level up. As a matter of fact, that was my primary means of leveling up when the game was first released, up until the dragon head glitch for fast leveling. Now, granted, we all know that the dragon head glitch no longer exists, but before it did, I used to gank all the time, right? And as a matter of fact, I used to gank with my lightning, rapier, and hornet ring, and it was fun at the time. Then I kind of moved out of that phase and I kind of went into the dueling phase, where I would kind of go to the bird. Well, actually, let me take that back. I got out of the ganking phase and then I just went straight into the random invasions phase, where I continued with my lightning, rapier, and hornet ring. But, all that stuff about bowing before and after and waiting until all the enemies were dead. Listen, when I invaded back then, I was out for blood. I wasn't thinking about any formality. I wasn't thinking about any odds that were against you. I was thinking about bringing all of the odds in my favor. Now, after doing that for a while, I went on to duels, right? And as I've said plenty of times in the past, dueling, in my personal opinion, is a situation wherein you kind of want to work on a lot of things. You want to remain competitive, but at the same time, it doesn't have the same sense of urgency as it might have during random invasions, because in other words, your focus is not necessarily on getting souls or humanity like it might be during random invasions, right? So at least when I duel, the focus is on getting better at certain tactics. Now, because I have went through all those stages, and I continue to go through all those stages, I mean, even today, as a matter of fact, I will go through all of those phases, all except for ganking. I get bored with ganking. I mean, it might be fun kind of chasing somebody down for maybe 1 or 2 kills, but after that, I'm kind of selfish in the sense that I want to take credit for the win, and not, us two bloodthirsty hollows just chasing after one poor phantom. So all except for ganking, I do it all. I Gravelord, I'll duel, and I do random invasions, and I think it makes me a more well-rounded player. Right, because in other words, since I do a lot of random invasions, I'm pretty much good with expecting a wide variety of tactics that might not necessarily exist during duels. Now, one of the downsides to that is I have different expectations for each type of fighting. Case in point, when I do random invasions, I go all out. I make no apologies and I have no reservations. Why is that? Because the sense of urgency. My goal is to kill. My goal is not to work on anything. My work is, my goal is not to, my goal is not to do anything but to kill. So because that is my goal, doing random invasions, if you give me your back 10 times, guess what I'm going to do? I'm taking it 10 times. With no reservation, and don't send me a note telling me how mean I am, because I'll probably do it again if I just so happen to invade you. But that's how a random invasion is, right? Now, like I said, the downside to that is that I have different expectations. So in other words, if I am dueling and I play against a person who all they are doing is BSing, or at least attempting nothing but BS's, I get more frustrated, right? Because I think to myself, like, okay, I mean, are we dueling or what? Because if you just really want to go all full hollow mode, I might as well just go ahead and put on a hornet ring and just go nuts, right? So, it has its pros and cons. But the original point that I was getting at is, if you want to Gravelord, you definitely need to create the most try-hard build that you can make. The most try-hard build that you can make. Right? And the reason why I say that is because of the odds that you're faced against. Like I said before, during any given time, you could be faced against three hollows. The blues, they're coming at you regardless. You might have a wild card with the Dick Wraith. In other words, they might feel like helping you out in trying to kill a Dork Moon, but then again, they might want to help a Dork Moon by trying to come after you. So you never really know with the dick rates. I mean, and that's why I say that they're a wild card, and you know, it's not like an official thing. I mean, of course it's random, but I'm just saying based upon all my experiences. At any given time, you can either have a dick wraith for you or against you. And that's not even counting the two dork moons that's going to hunt you down no matter who's there. So you really need the most try-hard build, you know. May it be, you know, so if you're one of those guys like spam the dark beads with the, and actually, this is not to say that you can't do it any other time, right? So I don't want none of you guys to try to say, well, you're just trying to imply that that's the only time that I can do that. I didn't say that. Stop reading into what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, for people who approach PvP like myself, and seeing their approach to PvP as being conditional and based upon the situation that you find yourself, this is the best opportunity to find the most try-hard build that you can create. Case in point, you guys could check any of my 200 plus Dark Souls videos, and I have way more pure melee builds than I have caster builds. May that caster be a pyro, may it be a faith, or may it even be a mage, because I just simply like pure melee builds. That's just my preference, right? When I use pure melee builds, you know, I am forced to use only weapons and only tactics, right? Not necessarily the help that may come with, you know, let's just say hitting someone with a dark bead for 900 damage. No, can't rely on any of that. Just weapons, shield, and, you know, escaping and evade. That's all I can do with pure melee, and I prefer that. But when you're gravelording, you need everything in your tool belt. Case in point, last week I think I used a pure mage, and one thing that I was talking about is that you know, seeing the limitations of a pure mage is pretty difficult to gravelord, because in some cases you really need to back these guys up off you. So this time around I decided to use my my faith mage. Now my faith, the gravelording version of this faith mage is totally different than the version of the faith mage that I would use if I were dueling. I have several videos in the past where I'm using that faith mage. Well, you know, when I'm dueling, I can incorporate chameleon and all these little tricks of, you know, jumping out of chameleon and going into BS, or jumping out of chameleon and going into parry. You know, you can do all that fancy stuff during a 1v1. But gravelording, you really don't have time for all this fancy schmancy stuff. Why is that? Because these guys are out for blood. They're definitely out for blood. So what I did was I changed all my attunement slots to Wrath of the Gods, and I'm using all the benefits that come with the Moonlight Greatsword. Now, why is that? Because most of those attacks, may it be either with the Moonlight Greatsword R2s or with the Wrath of the Gods, are area of effect attacks, which is really good when you're faced against guys that are just basically hawking you down. It serves as a buffer to basically say, listen dude, back up off me and give me some room. Because you're definitely going to need room if you're gravelording. You're definitely going to need it. So, you know, for a lot of you guys, like an additional challenge, and you know, you're so hotshot you can just take on all type of players, just try gravelording. And as a matter of fact, I know every week, well not every week, but at least for the last few weeks wherein I've been doing these Gravelord videos, I've been kind of making reference to Rapesom's one channel. But I'll just talk about it. Some of the qualifications you'll need to be able to successfully Gravelord. You guys need to at least be in New Game Plus. And actually, before I get into that, the ending to this fight kind of ticked me off, because I'm sitting here trying to fight while I have this window right here, and it prevented me from toggling because I had to press the X first to acknowledge that window. So I basically got stun locked into oblivion. But either way it go, GG. I mean, that's just how it is sometimes. But anyway, now with regard to gravelording, anyone for the most part can gravelord. Anyone can, I mean, you can start off just standard new game while Gravelording. However, creating a situation wherein you make red phantom spawn, you need to be in at least New Game Plus. So if you guys are trying to either get red phantoms or produce red phantoms, you need to be in New Game Plus. Preferably the victim. And as a matter of fact, I'm not really sure if the host has to be at New Game Plus, but in order to be 100% successful, both parties need to be a New Game Plus. But I'm pretty sure the host or the Gravelord Servant himself can be at New Game, but as long as the victim is at least at New Game Plus, then you will have those red phantoms spawned. Right? So the thing is, the Gravelord cannot have killed the boss. Cannot have killed the boss. The person or the victim, it doesn't really matter if you killed the boss or not. As long as you see a Gravelord sign, you can go ahead and invade. Another thing is basically within the same invasion ranges, which are 10 levels plus 10%. So as long as you're within those invasion ranges, you will infect up to 3 worlds. Now, if you're not at least New Game Plus, you will see the Gravelord sign. Keep that in mind. You will see the Gravelord sign. You just might not. You just might not spawn those red-black phantoms. So just remember that. If you want to have those black phantoms spawn, you have to be at New Game Plus at least. Alright, so enough about that. And once again, since I'm continuing on with these Gravelording uploads, I will once again put in Ribesome's 1 channel in the description box so you guys can reference this information for yourself if you're interested. Alright, so like I said before, you know, if you're going to Gravelord, you guys need to be as try-hard as possible. And actually, each time I Gravelord, it kind of gives me more and more ideas for builds to create. And the funny thing about it is, you know, I received this comment. And it just goes to show you how much people just do not listen. You know, they just kind of finger jam keyboards when they see or hear something they don't like. And a lot of times they miss important information because they don't listen to the whole commentary. So anyway, so a guy makes a comment. He's basically like, oh, you're talking about try hard yet you have 30 dark beads. Okay, and I'm like, okay, yes, I did have 30 dark beads, but I mean, even if you listen to the commentary, you would have heard me say that having those dark beads was actually a waste of time. And I even explained why I thought it was a waste of time. And even if I didn't think it was a waste of time, who cares when you can have up to 3 people fighting against you and you're all by yourself? Like, who really cares? Dude, if I had 100 dark beads and I'm fighting against potentially up to 3, maybe 4 people, who really cares? Like, seriously, who cares? As a matter of fact, I think it's up to 3 people. But who really cares? The odds are against me. I'm basically a lone ranger, spreading misery. So even if I had 1,000 dark beads, like, seriously, get off it, dude. Right? Because I really don't see how a Gravelord Servant can ever be tryhard. As a matter of fact, a Gravelord Servant is trying to survive. I don't care what he's using, nor do I care about whether you agree with the setup. If that guy's using a Hornet Ring plus a Demon's Great Machete, so what? That dude's need to survive. If that guy's using, you know, TWAP plus Dark Bead plus, you know, Pursuers, so what? Because guess what? At any given time, that guy can have up to 3 hollows hunting him down and trying to kill him to remove that Gravelord infection. So you guys can get off it with regards to the comments about the degree to which a Gravelord Servant is a tryhard or not. As a matter of fact, I would support any Gravelord. As a matter of fact, I would say you're not even doing your job as a Gravelord Servant if you're not being super tryhard. And like I said before, That's not insulting. I mean, I'm just it's just a term. So for a lot of you guys are kind of extremely sensitive about things, don't get all upset. This is just commentary, right? All it is commentary. So I was able to get out of that, but I wasn't able to take advantage of that BS. Alright, looks like he beat me to the punch. And he's trying to put in some of that claymore work, and he was able to toggle out of that BS, and I took advantage of him. And is that a W? Or is he still alive? Oh, he's still alive. So I'm in trouble. I still have to watch my back. As a matter of fact, shout out to Lagstab. Matter of fact, not only Lagstab, shout out to Alpha Papa Novi, Lagstabu, that's the Red Phantom, and man, who was that? There was one other person. I'd like to give a shout out to him. As a matter of fact, as soon as I see him, I think he Gaming Monkey. Alright, shout out to him. Those guys showed up while I was sitting here gravelording. Alright, so he got caught up with that Moonlight Greatsword R2, and actually that Moonlight Greatsword R2 really comes in handy when you're gravelording. Now, let's just talk about environments. In the first Gravelord video that I uploaded, right, that was the one wherein I was in the depths. If you guys haven't seen that video, go ahead and refresh yourself on it. But I basically talked about the benefits of having certain type of environments. And the same can be said with Sin's Fortress. I mean, you have all types of advantages here at Sin's Fortress. I mean, you have these stairs. You can easily run away. As long as you're familiar with the maps, you could really take advantage of the terrain. Right? May it be you hiding. May it be you just running so that you can heal yourself. Case in point, whenever I really get stuck in a bind, guess what I do? I go over to that bridge and I go over to where you could buy those green grasses, because in a lot of cases they don't really expect you to go in that direction. As a matter of fact, I've even had guys, you know, they'll kind of give me the shrug when I run over there, and I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, this is not a duel. I mean, if you think I'm not going to run, you have lost your mind. You have forgotten what the purpose of gravelording is. The whole purpose of gravelording is for me to be the biggest prick that I can. That's it. I'm not trying to duel you. I'm not dueling. Now, I might duel you in a 1v1. I might duel you. But for the most part, I'm just trying to get as many kills as I can. I'm not trying to go through any formality. So if I run, if I heal, you know, don't send me a note saying, "Oh my God, Brigade, you have videos. I thought you were honorable." Don't send me that crap. Like I said at the beginning of the video, you guys need to understand that things are conditional. All circumstances will not require the same responses, and if you don't understand that, you are fooling yourself. Alright, definitely fooling yourself. So, enough about that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this gravelording video. I hope it was entertaining. And like I said before, I'll try to gravelord in some other areas. You know, I'm thinking about doing Duke's Archives, and maybe one or two other places. But like I said before, it just really depends upon how active the area is at the time that I'm invading. And keep in mind that all of these builds, I'm still staying at 125. Definitely staying at 125. Now, for a lot of you guys that are interested in gravelording, here's another thing. Shout out to Don Thy Bomb. He created a mule, right? And as a matter of fact, that mule I still use up to this day, because I refuse to create builds from scratch. But anyway, that mule started everyone at New Game. But if you go to IGBX Rated's channel, 7 of those builds will start you at New Game Plus, and 3 of those builds will start you at New Game Plus 7. Now, why do I particularly like that version? Well, mainly because I'm gravelording. And when you're gravelording, no one really wants to hurry up and beat the game first before they're able to really gravelord, or if they're anticipating a gravelord infection. No. So, seeing that IGBX Rated has a version of a mule that already presets all 10 characters at least at New Game Plus, Go ahead and check it out if you guys are interested. As a matter of fact, I'll put a link to his video in the description box. So I'll put a link to Ribsome's 1 channel in the description box for more information on Gravelording, and I'll put IGBX rated the link to that video in the description box for you guys that are interested in the mule. Now keep in mind, you know, for a lot of you guys that are against the mule, it doesn't have any divine blessings, it doesn't have any Elizabeth's mushrooms. All it has is everything that can be found in the game. That's it. There's no weapon names, there's no protector armors, there's none of that. So I don't want to hear anybody, I don't want to hear anything saying like, yo Brigade, you promoting mod. I'm not promoting anything. Everything that's in that mule is everything that can be found legitimately in the game. No divine blessings and no Elizabeth's mushrooms, just like in Dom's mule. So enough about that. I hope you guys enjoyed the vid, and until next time, Martyrs Brigade is out.